Heyo everybody, Haku here with my read-through for Magical Girl Raising Project, or Mahou Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku Chapter 7, Witch Hunt, and I have come to a decision. Sorry if this is up late, it probably is, but actually maybe not. It depends on a lot of factors. I might actually be posting this right after I record it, which means it'll be up Tuesday afternoon as usual. Even though I'd like to have it up earlier than the afternoon. But either way, I've made the decision that I think, because I have so much chaos going on with the channel right now, Sunday and Monday my recording software was broken. I just finally figured out how to fix it today, so that's why this may or may not be late, because of me being behind from Sunday and Monday. But I think, at least for right now, I'm just going to do the one read through every Tuesday for this. So you'll get half a chapter on Tuesday, the next half the next Tuesday, and so on and so forth. So you're still going to get a decently long Magical Girl Raising Project video every single week. It's just right now, since I've been behind on some things and been struggling with some things, I think I shouldn't be doing 2 long read-throughs just for this series every single week. So what I think I'll do, I'll just do 1 video a week for now, and then when I'm caught up with everything, if I feel like I have the time, I'll go back to 2 a week. So just 1 a week for now, and then probably, depending on what things end up looking like with what anime I decide to watch and review, depending on what that looks like, I'll probably go back to 2 a week as soon as I can. So as soon as I can, we'll be back to that, don't worry. So yeah, I guess that's it. Let's go ahead and read Witch Hunt. There are page breaks in this one, I think at pages 17, 19, and 20. I want to read the first 20 pages, and then for the second one, I'll only have to read 10 pages, so I might end up doing 2 videos this week. Again, it just all depends on the scheduling. Just don't be surprised if you only see 1 video a week, at least until I get caught up with everything I want to do. But yeah, I want to try to do 20 pages here, but if I only get to 17 and my camera's battery's running a little low, or the same thing getting to 19 pages, well, if I'm at 19, I'll probably make the stretch to 20, but you get what I mean. And also, very much hopefully, my recording software doesn't mess up here, and make me have to either re-record things and it not be my first time reading, or yeah, we'll just see how that goes. Hopefully it doesn't mess up. Hopefully we don't even need to discuss that. So let's get into reading Chapter 7, I guess. The last time I kind of already went over where all the characters were, but 5 of them met up at this place, and then bam, Pithy's team busts in. So yeah. And Pukin's going to be hunting them for, I guess, whatever reason. They want to catch the assassin, but this doesn't exactly seem like the best way to do so. Because wouldn't they need the assassin alive? I mean, I guess they don't, but we'll see how things go. It's best to read than to speculate with no information and then get information as soon as I start reading, having wasted all of your time on that. Speculation is good if I have, like, speculation to go off of, but there's nothing I haven't already said. So, instead of wasting time, let's get into reading Chapter 7, Witch Hunt, starting with Wedden at 15 hours, 22 minutes remaining. Okay. The magical girls running fiercely through the night, playing an annoying game of tag, were interrupted by 4 other magical girls that appeared from the factory. A total of 9 magical girls glared at each other in front of this abandoned waste factory, which had been ruined in the economic bubble's collapse. Some of them were smiling as the street lamps remained broken, with the asphalt being cracked, a scenery filled with twisted wire meshes. It was completely unsuitable for these beautiful-looking girls. Wedden looked at the 4 girls who had appeared from inside the hole. They were definitely different from the magical girls she'd seen up until now. When she was crucified by the ninja, she trembled seeing her scarred eye, and when she was being chased by rabbit ears, she felt depressed thinking what she might do to her. Confuse her for a bit, she had told Tepsukeme in a loud voice. Both were scary magical girls. Wedden was no match for either of them. Tepsukeme or Kurukuru Hime, despite being stronger than Wedden, also couldn't beat them one-on-one. Seeing the 4 that just came out, Wedden understood the difference. The fear she had of rabbit ears and the ninja was just regular old fear. For those who had no reason to be afraid, they only frightened themselves, or they only frightened them as much as necessary. Rabbit Ears and the ninja were also fantasy-ish magical girls, so there was no raw violence in their looks. These four were different. They had only the smell of raw violence. Just confronting them made her hope that they didn't look her way, and if they did, she felt like she'd just lay down flat. Wedden felt like she was going to faint. She forced herself not to, but her heart was filled with fear. She tried desperately to hold it in, to hide it, as she looked at Rabbit Ear's state. Rabbit Ear's face was hardened, as if these four weren't reinforcements at all. I recommend not going against her. It'd be a shame if someone were to get hurt, no? The fortune teller told them with a smile. She didn't seem to be Rabbit Ear's ally, but the enemy of her enemy was still Wedden's enemy. The situation was complex, but if it wasn't that simple, she might have a way out. You've got to be kidding me, you idiot. These young and abusive words came out of Grace's mouth as she slashed through the air, and the fencer instantly blocked the attack. Grace... Honestly, I really don't like Captain Grace. Damn it, Grace. And the fencer instantly blocked her attack. The pirate's single-edged cutlass and the fencer's graceful rapier clashed against each other. The metallic sound resonated throughout the narrow alleyways. Grace pressed on her cutlass, attempting to kick her opponent's belly, but the fencer had already dodged. Afterward, she pulled a twisted wire mesh from the ground, trying to trip her opponent, but the fencer's rapier easily sliced the wire mesh. Grace's attack hasn't stopped yet. She kicked off from the building wall at the same time she turned around. She kicked a block of the wall and launched it toward her opponent. The fencer dodged every single debris flying at her, jumping and landing smoothly on the ground. The shotgun-like blocks avoided by the fencer had destroyed a section of the building wall. Wedden had tried to call off Grace in order to help her, but it was hard enough keeping up with Grace's movements. Her opponent's speed was also nothing to scoff at. It seemed she was enjoying the fight. If Wedden tried to head over there, she'd undoubtedly be in danger. She should avoid intervening. What should Wedden do? What could Wedden do? Her head kept spinning on those thoughts. Her ally wasn't moving. Wait, maybe she couldn't move. Funny Trick's cheeks were completely pale. Tepsukeme's, in comparison, was completely calm. Expressionless as always, she kept her eyes on the remaining enemies. Her enemies were smiling, and some of them were grinning at the fight. There was an opening. Rabbit Ears turned around and started running. The fortune-teller whispered something to the fencer, and the fencer nodded calmly. The musician and the fortune-teller leaped across Wedden's head, leaping across the building walls, forming a sort of triangular shape as they chased Rabbit Ears. Would the fight here be won? But, even though her enemies had decreased by half, Wedden still didn't feel like they had any chance of winning. They couldn't win this fight, so Wedden had to interfere with Grace. As she thought of those words, she swiftly shouted out to Grace, "Leave me and run away from her." Okay. As this was an order from their leader, everyone had to accept. Even if they made the promise half-heartedly, Wedden's magical skill means they couldn't break it. While aiming her cutlass at her enemy, Grace jumped toward a building and escaped. Funny Trick also ran away. Tepsukeme glanced at Wedden for a split second, but, since she couldn't disobey orders, she flew off into the sky. The last enemy in front of the factory entrance, a patchwork magical girl filled with wraps and seams, nodded to the swordsman and jumped towards the building rooftop. The swordsman did not pursue. She didn't chase after, but instead looked towards Wedden. Seeing as she went toe-to-toe against Grace, Wedden was no match for her. Her head was spinning. She felt faint and she couldn't breathe. She found it hard to keep herself calm. A magical girl was resistant to the cold air, but her spine was tingling as if she was frozen. She breathed slowly, exhaled white puffs of breath as it slowly disappeared. The swordsman and Grace were fighting to take each other's lives. Wedden shouldn't have messed with them too quickly. There was no reason for a human to interfere with two beasts clawing and biting at each other. Calm down, she told herself. Rabbit Ears had already taken the other two away with her, so it was good that they managed to separate them. If the patchwork girl was chasing 3 people, then at least 2 people should be able to escape. Wedden didn't want to think that it was at the cost of losing the third. It was all according to her calculations. They had to run away because they were facing an unbeatable foe. So out of those 3 people, at least 2 of them would be saved. So that just leaves Wedden with Pithy, right? I think. It should at least. And now she had to fight one-on-one herself. Her costume's candle was making a light burning noise. Don't be distracted. I have to be graceful. I'm the leader. I can't lose here. The swordsman came closer. I thought the swordsman was the one. I thought Top Pop and Pukin had chased after Rabbit Ears, but I guess it was Pithy and Top Pop that chased after Hana. The swordsman came closer. She was smiling. She was elegant and aristocratic, yet she looked of death. What would happen if she died? Was there an afterlife? Would she go to heaven or hell? Or is death simply the end? Would she lose consciousness as she lost her life and be subjected to an eternity of nothingness? Her fears of death began to spring up. She clenched her teeth and swallowed them all down again. Weddin, Mine Musabiya, was a selfish girl no matter where she was, always working with gains and losses in mind. She thought of the pros and cons of the situation and directed everyone to escape. Rather than thinking about how slow she might run, she dared to be the last one standing. She never planned to simply sacrifice herself because of selfless reasons. However, there was still a way. Weddin raised her hands to the swordsman. She tried to steal her expressions and looked at her opponent face to face. I've lost. I will surrender. I won't fight any more. Please, spare my life. The swordsman seemed to distrust her. Also, the swordsman spoke some foreign language. It was fast and hard to hear, but it's probably English. Weddin spoke out, Surrender! The swordsman stopped at a 3-meter distance. She moved the feather decoration on her head with her fingertips, the edges of her mouth rising up. Was she smiling? She seemed to be alarmed, too. Since the tension didn't seem to be solved by Weddin saying she probably thinks she's telling her to surrender. By Weddin saying surrender, Weddin raised her arms up as if to say she'll fight no longer. If they fought like she did with Grace, then she wouldn't compare to her strength. The only way for Weddin to fight was to trap her enemies. Weddin's magical skill was her unbreakable promises. The number of promises didn't matter. Even if she were to break it, her opponent could never break that promise. If she was caught, then she'd be interrogated. She was a bit worried about an English conversation, but if there was an interpreter, it should be okay. She could prolong small questions or interrogations. As long as they didn't look like they were going to resort to torture, she could prolong it. No matter how tiring it may be, she could make promises little by little. If her opponent thinks she could easily break their promise, then it would be settled, as if she were slowly trapping them within their own web, bit by bit. And so if she accepts that she's going to spare her life, then Pukin won't physically be able to kill Weddin, it would seem. The swordsman walked towards her until she was half a step away. She brandished her sword twice as she unsheathed it. I see, your conscience is heartfelt. She couldn't understand what the swordsman was saying before, but now she could. It wasn't Japanese, she was still speaking English. She didn't think it was strange, she just naturally accepted it. Weddin lowered her head. Thank you very much for your generous treatment. By the way, the swordsman smiled, then she chuckles. Weddin couldn't see any caution with her. This is my duty as an examiner, you see. As unfortunate as it is, it's only natural that there would be many liars who would try to deceive me. Casually walking towards Weddin, she placed her hands on Weddin's shoulder. If you've known a person for many decades, you'd be able to tell what they're thinking from their faces. People who would do wrong, who would lie to me, who would try to deceive me, who would try to spin me around. I can see it all in their faces. As if she'd been friends with Weddin for decades, she held her hands on Weddin's shoulders. Weddin saw the 10-centimeter rapier that she had sheathed. But if I see someone I distrust, then I use this sword. See, this sword has a magical ability. I can make these people misinterpret things. Misinterpret? That's right. I can change their perception, so to speak. For example, someone who they should fight as an enemy becomes their lord whom they'll serve. They don't just become any servant. They'll become someone who's willing to do anything for their master. Oh, but don't think of it as brainwashing. Don't think of it as brainwashing now. It's more like the reality of the people I cut with this sword changes. For example, you didn't know what I was saying before. Now you're completely fluent. Click, she placed the sword in the sheath. Now then, I have work to do. Your name. So she's now cut Weddin to give her the ability to speak English. And before, I'm assuming, that means that she cut Sonia at some point, and that's what made Sonia into her loyal servant. And it's starting to thunder, but I'm going to keep going with this, at least for a bit. Click, she placed the sword in the sheath. Now then, I have work to do. Your name? Weddin. A wonderful name. Right then, lend me a hand, won't you? Weddin chased after Pukin, who began dashing into the night. Wedden wanted to be with Pukin for 10 more years. Whatever Pukin ordered, Wedden would follow. If Pukin said so, then she couldn't be wrong. Because of that, she wouldn't regret selling out her friends. She prioritized Pukin out of everything. So now Wedden has become Pukin's complete servant, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that Pukin can't kill Wedden. So this is an interesting situation. And with abilities like those, it's probably going to get even more complex. So now we have Captain Grace with 15 hours and 15 minutes remaining. Captain Grace was frustrated as she continued to run against her own will, and while she was relieved that she could escape, her heart burnt with anger. She jumped over buildings, crossed rooftops, ran, jumped across the darkened alleyways, yet she couldn't shake her enemy. In the battlefield, this was probably her first experience where she had to quickly think of what to do next. Umi Shihabara had never hesitated in a fight before. She'd always decided what to do before she did it. She could hit them, kick them, throw them away. As long as it was a fight, she just had to cause as much violent action to them as possible. Random street punks who couldn't do anything in a fight only made themselves look stupid. If you can't win, you should fight. If you can win, you should fight. If you can't win, you should run. Being taken away without doing either is just idiotic. But when she saw those four, it's not that she couldn't move, but she hesitated. The 4 people she saw at the factory were strong. The Guitar Magical Girl and the Crystal Ball Magical Girl were probably strong enough to fight against Rabbit Ears and the Ninja. The Sword-Wielding Magical Girl and the Patchwork Magical Girl were even stronger than the black thing they fought back at the apartment. Despite looking them straight in the eye, she felt like they were looking down on her. The situation was bad. As Rabbit Ears looked like she was in trouble, Grace chose to fight. But what could the others do? Tepsukeme could fly off into the air, but if the enemy ever set their sights on Funny Trick and Wedden, Grace didn't think she could stop them. As she thought of that, she became angry and shook off her feelings of weakness. First, she'd beat down her opponent with a single blow. That was her plan, but her attack was easily deflected. Deflected by a thin sword that seemed like it could break if it clashed with a bigger one, yet it was supple and graceful in its movements and was able to receive her attack. The 4 magical girls smiled. The swordsmen and the 3 beside her were all amused by Grace. "They're messing with me." Grace's anger had exceeded its boiling point. When Grace threw all caution to the wind and concentrated solely on attacking, Wedden ordered her to retreat. Because of Wedden's magical skill, even though Grace didn't want to run away, she had to run. It was annoying, but she was able to cool down. She could pretend to regain some calmness. There was only one person chasing her. It wasn't the sword-wielding magical girl, it was the Patchwork Magical Girl. She had no idea what to expect from her. With her sparkling eyes running just about 10 meters behind her. "Leave me and run away," was the order that Wedden gave. So Wedden was left alone back there. There had to be at least one enemy left behind there as well. Before Wedden spoke, Rabbit Ears ran away, and Grace saw the fortune teller and guitarist chase off after her. She deducted that no one was chasing Funny Trick at this moment. Knowing that nobody was chasing after Funny Trick made Grace relieved. The pressure was off from her. At least her partner's life was safe. Back in 1st grade elementary school, Kayo Nemura was the girl who was able to study the most, but the reason Umi called her out wasn't due to her ability to study. She once learned from an anime that you can check up on the history of a person's library card to find out if they had the same interests as you. That was Kayo. In the library during lunch, when she saw Kayo's face from the side as she read the Robber Hotzenplotz, she was turning the pages with such fervor. It was as if she was in the middle of an adventure. When she poked her on the cheek, Kayo didn't even notice, as she was too focused on her books. Kayo's cheeks were soft. Umi became interested in Kayo. Later, she became more involved with her. Stepping into her opponent's boundaries without a care for any rules or manners was Umi's specialty. In 4th grade summer vacation, the two were together as they traveled to Honshu. In 5th grade, they were together even as they entered the karate club, and as Umi managed to beat the teacher. In middle school 1st grade, she was even by Umi's side when Umi had a fight with a motorcycle gang. Kayo's role was to calm down the always forward-moving, fast-paced Umi. Even if Umi judged that it's better to retreat, her legs will often move forward without her thinking. If she were alone, she'd probably rampage almost everywhere. With Kayo as her military leader, she could probably demonstrate her full power, though she was too embarrassed to say that, so she never said it out loud. Then she felt something. In addition to the enemy behind her, there was someone running parallel to her. It was the new enemy, she thought as she looked towards her, but when she did, she saw a familiar magical girl running. Captain Grace held back her complaints. It was Funny Trick. She was running equidistantly with Captain Grace and the enemy, forming a triangle formation. Just what the hell was she thinking? In terms of numbers, they win, so if they were to split up and run away, at least one of the two would be safe. Doesn't she know that this girl was unreasonably strong? She thought as she ran, feeling a sense of resignation. Also, I'm thinking, isn't, if Sonya touched one particle of Mei, would it kill her? Or because Mei is made of can like spread herself out as the air or whatever, does that mean Mei is basically immune to Sonya? But either way, she thought as she ran, feeling a sense of resignation. The girl that was following her was lightly curling the edge of her lips happily. Funny Trick had no sense of fighting, because they couldn't measure their opponent's power. She silently praised her partner. As Captain Grace ran above the rooftops, her feet were breaking the tiles, and the tiles that she trampled on her toes she threw behind her. As the tiles were thrown toward her enemy, she didn't slow down at all. She was neither injured nor frightened. The tiles had no effect at all, yet being able to throw those tiles behind her as an attack had some meaning for her. Wedden's magical skill made it impossible to disobey, yet when she told them to run away, they were able to choose how they could run away. Let me get a sip of water really quick, sorry. She tried to slow down her speed, and just by loosening the movements of her feet, she slightly shortened her distance with her enemy. This means she didn't have to run at full strength. She used her ship's equipment to tie a rope to her hook. She wanted to tie it like a soldier or a sailor, but unfortunately, she didn't know how to tie things. For now, she simply tried to tighten what knot she could make, as she didn't think too hard. Grace jumped over the roof of the building, throwing the roped hook over an elevated bypass and crossing over it. The enemy was still following her, but Grace had no other tools. It was only a few meters, but she had regained her distance. Thanks to the time, there were no cars in the bypass right now, so she could run this way. As her enemy was climbing the bypass to chase Grace, something from the sky was flying towards her, landing on the road with an echoing sound of destruction. Grace looked up. Tepsukeme was flying in the opposite direction, attacking her enemy. Someone other than Grace, who was told run away, was fighting with the enemy, and that made Grace happy. As she loudly voiced her laughter, she saw Funny Trick lagging behind near her near her enemy as she climbed up. The air bullets continued to fire. She could hear the sounds of destruction, and what followed were pieces of concrete scattered about. As Grace was running, she looked behind her, and naturally her speed wavered. The ragged clothes-looking magical girl was coming closer to her as she smiled. The smile was similar to a predator about to catch her prey. She'd be glad to sink her fangs into her. Don't you think I'll let you do that, thought Grace as she opened her hands and thrusted them forward. Okay, now we have an illustration. And we have Sonya charging at Grace. And I've got to say, even though she's a bad guy, Sonya is adorable. She is like the cutest thing. Okay, so she's charging at her. Thrusts her hands in front of her. This wasn't a safe distance. She prepared for some degree of damage. In front of Captain Grace's enemy, and in front of herself, she dropped a pirate ship. The object that appeared so suddenly, ignoring the law of conservation of mass, crushed the running enemy below it, and blowing away Grace, who was standing close by, cracking the road. As Grace was blown away, she shouted happily while she rolled on the ground. Her enemy couldn't avoid it. That was what she felt. She's just going to turn it to dust, isn't she? Funny Trick loosened her legs, and Tepsukeme slowly landed. Their enemy was gone, so there was no need to run away. Yeah, all right then. She was interrupted. A black hazed mass popped out from the tip of her ship. Her wooden ship was magical. It was able to travel at water at subsonic speeds, its durability transcending physical resistance. Whether it was air or water, it wouldn't be easy to break even if a magical girl punched or kicked it. And on that ship, on Captain Grace's legendary pirate ship, a miserably large hole had been opened. A swirling stain-like erosion had broken her ship, and her enemy, who hasn't slowed down at all, leapt out of it. She passed through Tepsukeme, touching her shoulders, and the part where she had touched disappeared into a black haze. Tepsukeme's usual faceless expression had broken, as she stared at something unbelievable, gazing at the part of her body that she'd lost. That seems kind of weird. I don't know really how this works, but we'll see. The patchwork magical girl closed her distance with Grace in one leap, stretching her hands towards her. Grace intercepted it with her sword, but without even feeling her sword being touched, it disappeared in a black haze. The magical girl continued to stroke Grace's face, and everything turned black. She couldn't see. She had no experience. Oh, did she just destroy her eyes, or did she kill her? She couldn't see. She had no experience, and I guessed that she would be one of the first ones to die, but damn. She had no experience fighting in complete darkness. Not to mention, this enemy, someone who surpassed rabbit ears in the Black Sphere. Was this an adventure? Captain Grace's adventure book. It had to have excitement in its pages. She had to give it to her partner, Funny Trick, as a record book for her to see. Saying record keeper sounds like a rather boring name for it, but that's the kind of obligation she had to do. This girl really didn't have any good points, huh? That's why Grace had to protect her. As she was imagining a bright future for her, Captain Grace's consciousness sunk into the abyss. So Grace is the first to die, and May has lost her shoulders? I don't really get how this works with May, though, because she can become the wind. Nothing about May makes any sense. But yeah, Sonya's completely OP, and I think she just, completely took the head off of, Grace, if not destroyed her completely. Okay, then. So, now we're at page 13 with Pithy Frederica, 15 hours, 50 minutes, so the same amount of time. So we're just jumping from where all the different groups split off. Rabbit Ear's legs were frighteningly fast. Top Pop and Frederica did their best to follow up. So, I guess this does mean that the main villains of this, Toko and Rainbow might be endgame kind of villains. Maybe? But it seems like the main villains are actually going to be Pithy's group. The other two groups are going to have to team up to take them on, probably. Or at least some members. I'm sure there's going to be even more betrayals and side-switching, though. I mean, as we already kind of saw with Wedden was taken hostage, pretty much, and made to join the other team. Pithy Frederica, time remaining 15 hours, 50 minutes. Rabbit Ear's legs were frighteningly fast. Top Pop and Frederica did their best to follow up. A magical girl's physical appearance wasn't just child's play or idiotic looking. If they had wings, then they could fly. If they had long tails, they could use it to grab things. If they had weapons, they can use it to attack. It wasn't just the physical appearance that was easy to understand, but it's not uncommon for the overall motif to be a representation of the person's true self. Basically, a rabbit magical girl would be a lot faster than a fortune teller or a musician magical girl. The saying, "rabbits run so fast it's as if they could fly as birds," wasn't just for show. Both her hands and her legs were on the ground, and she was running like a real rabbit, gradually gaining distance away from them. "This looks bad, Master. This kind of running course we're doing, I mean. If she escapes here, they'll leave a bad mark on her usefulness for sure. I wouldn't like that. Neither would I. I'd very much prefer if they see how a mentor and her apprentice could work together and be useful." Frederica searched her memories. The rabbit girl's kimono. There had to have been a magical girl in the examination division like that. Her name was Hana Gekukujo. I always forget Hana's second part of her name. Hana Gekukujo. If she was here, then she could judge that she would belong in an investigation team of magical girls. So she had value as a hostage. Capturing someone without killing them was a mission that was unfit for Sonya or Pukin. So that seems like very much easy for Pukin, but either way. So they were given to Top Pop and Frederica, but the difference of running strength between them is far too much. "Gekukujo," she called out to her. Her long ears vibrated. It's good that she reacted. This was proof that she was the real Hana Gekukujo. And she was said to have an honest personality as well. Frederica told Top Pop she shared what little info she had. Okay. Hana Gekukujo, her magical skill is strengthening her senses. If you get close to her, she can manipulate yours as well, so be careful. "Not bad, Master. You know a lot of details for being a magical girl maniac, huh?" She was in charge of any internal crimes in the examination division. By sharpening her senses, she can scout out hidden enemies, but she's also a good fighter as well. Don't be fooled by her appearance. If we fought, I don't think we can win. Roger, Dodger. Frederica continued digging up any intel she had on Hana Gekukujo. Gekukujo, how's Mana doing? Her long ears shook left and right, gradually. Hana raised her upper body until she stood upright and looked back. Frederica stopped running and held back Top Pop with her right hand, with a smiling face. She looked at Hana. Hana's face was full of distrust. Frederica quickly checked on her position. Her position was 10 meters. They were in a narrow alleyway by the river. It was also flowing into some kind of unseen drainage system. If she ran away there, it'd be difficult to pursue her. She should have calculated that far for when to stop. Her enemy was strong. I've gotten support from the outside. It'd be troublesome for you to have so many enemies to deal with, no? Don't try to deceive me. Her reply was quick like a slash. Deceive? What are you talking about? You were talking about me earlier, weren't you? My ears are that good, so I picked up everything you were saying. My, how amazing. Even if I didn't hear you, I wouldn't be tricked, though. I mean, you'd have to be unqualified if you're part of the investigation team and not know the famous Pithy Frederica. Well, what's done is done. She smiled softly, nudging Hana to smile along with her. But Hana's expression remained stiff. Even though her hands were lowered, her position seemed relaxed. She knew she could run away at any time. There were no openings. As expected, she was powerful. Then why did you stop? Why are you running? Then why did you stop running and decide to listen to what I have to say? How do you know Mana is the group leader? When you were imprisoned, it should have been before Mana was assigned as leader. Frederica looked into a variety of places. That meant top-secret documents and any decisions that were held at meetings. Soon she was able to pick up the name of the examination division's leader, and if she let it slip, then people would probably wonder where she got the information from. One thing she got right was that the examination division personnel information was going just according to what she had thought. As long as Frederica achieved her original objective of stopping Hana from running, anything else she did would just be a bonus. You see, Mana and I have some relation with each other. She had a tone which suggested, I'll tell you everything about it, and while she was talking, she naturally placed her left hand inside her crystal ball, pulling something from the outside. Huh? Before Hana could make her doubts disappear, Frederica threw 3 grenades from her hands. She'd already removed the pins, throwing them over Hana's head as they rolled behind her. She looked at Top Pop as she began to loudly strum her guitar. The raging sound was accompanied by large and small musical notes hitting Hana. The grenade she threw before exploded. Concrete pieces flew in all directions, and Frederica's hair swayed in the blast. Frederica held her ground, once more picking up something from her crystal ball. Wrapped around her right index finger was the most beautiful hair from Top Pop's subordinates. Inside the crystal ball she could see the state of a weapons armory. With Frederica's magical skill, she could find any weapon she liked as much as necessary. If she got a hold of the land of magic's magical weapons, then not even a magical girl can stand up to it. Hana couldn't run behind her. She had to, if she went to where the hand grenade was, then she may suffer huge injuries, or worse, die. Hana also couldn't escape this way. At the same time as Frederica threw her grenades, Top Pop strummed her guitar, and musical notes overflowed with them. Even though the notes seemed like fancy weapons, if she was hit directly, she'd inevitably be injured. Hana had to pick a third option of escaping. With the blast behind her, she jumped off. She kicked the walls, jumped over toward a telephone pole. Instead of escaping towards the back, she tried to escape from above. However, it was also the option that Frederica wanted her to pick. She had read Hana's escape route. She changed the channel of her crystal ball. On her left middle finger she had Top Pop's strand of hair. On the crystal ball was Top Pop and Frederica, and in that projected image she could also see Hana. Frederica inserted her left hand into the crystal ball, making her hands appear where Hana wanted to escape. She grabbed onto Hana's ankle and pulled it, making her lose her balance as she fell on the ground. As Hana flipped 3 times in the air, the place where she landed was where Top Pop unleashed her second wave of musical notes. The torrent of musical notes smashed into her unprotected back. Top Pop strummed at her guitar, the 8 notes turning into 4 notes as they bounced off concrete. They tortured Hana's body from all directions. It kept beating up Hana until Frederica said, "That's enough." The last of the notes faded out as it disappeared from the ground. Frederica rubbed Top Pop's head. You knew what I was intending to do without me even having to say it. What a good apprentice. Well, I do know that I'm your #1 apprentice, master, she happily smiled. As Top Pop made her guitar stand up, Frederica approached the crawling Hana, using her feet to turn her body over. Hana was lying in a fetal position, as if she'd lost consciousness, yet it seems like her transformation hasn't been undone, a testament to her higher strength. As Frederica grabbed onto Hana's nape, she entered her crystal ball. Okay. Alright. Okay, now we're going to mop on... Oh, my leg is falling asleep. Hang on. Let me shift a little bit here. Okay. Well, let me check my recording. Everything looks good as it's going to look. I mean, I guess. Okay. I had to shift the way I was sitting. I'm losing my voice a lot because I recorded for like 25 minutes before this. But I still think... Let me see what my battery looks like. Let me check on my camera and all. Ooh, it's getting a little bit low. You know what? So the video's kind of half and half. I think I'm going to end it here. We had our first death. We had a lot of cool stuff. Now Hana's basically been captured. Wedden's basically been captured. We don't know what's going to happen with May or with... Yeah, with May or with... that's everybody that was there, yeah. May or Funny Trick. So I guess we'll see what happens. That was cool. I'm not too upset about Captain Grace's death because she was probably my least favorite character this arc. Besides maybe Rainbow has a cool design, it's just that she's been kind of boring so far. Captain Grace for me was a little bit annoying because she was putting the others in danger with not ever thinking anything through ahead of time. So she kind of annoyed me a little. So yeah, I'm not too sad about her death. And Sonya is badass as all hell. I friggin' love Sonya's ability so much. So yeah, and her design, it's so cool. So yeah, I guess that's it. I'm gonna call this one a day for here. I'll record the next 13 pages, I guess. Finish this off next time. So yeah, if you did like the video, comment down there. Tell me what you thought of this chapter, first half of this chapter, what you thought of my first thoughts and reaction and all that. Subscribe for more Magical Girl Raising Project, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel. If you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us there, just ask and I'll give you a link. That's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.